how do you become unshakable? Meaning, how do you live your life such that when challenging things happen or circumstances or in relationships, hard things happen, how do you remain your center, stay open, stay strong, stay confident, stay peaceful, stay happy even? It's all totally possible. And it can be done. And I want to share with you 3 steps on how you do that. First, a little bit of a story. Many years ago, when I was beginning a path of transformation, how to essentially become unshakable, this idea of even becoming unshakable was completely impossible. There was no way that someone could live that way, so I thought. I met many people. I studied under many teachers, therapists, spiritual teachers, leaders, tried many different things. I practiced many different things. And it kind of worked. Like I felt a little bit better. But I would still get very irritable. I'd still get very triggered. I'd still get very angry. And I was one of these people, one of these guys that would get into the drama, right? In relationships, especially romantic relationships, became very steeped in like, you made me feel this way. And how could you do this to me? And they were saying, how could you do this to me? And I was like, how could you do this to me? And I was practicing, I'm just being authentic, and I'm not trying to dog being authentic. At that time, being authentic for me was a justification for being reactive, right? Being authentic, in my definition, means we're being vulnerable and we're being transparent and we're lowering our guard, right? So all this to say, for many years, I lived that way. And then I met Her Holiness Sai Ma, my spiritual master, and she shared with me these teachings, some of which I'm going to package for you today, on how to become unshakable. And this is something I've been practicing for 15 years, and I can tell you that day to day, am I shaken? I mean, sort of. Do I get upset about things? For sure. And does it last a very short amount of time? And do I regain my centeredness and my joy and my happiness and my peace? Absolutely. And I want to share with you how you can do that for yourself, and it won't take you 15 years if you practice these things, all right? So the first thing is around being unshakable is that we need to be in our hearts. Now, some people might say, and some people's definitions of unshakability might say being confident. That might mean being like, I'm strong, and I'm out there in the world and I'm confident, I can do anything and no one's going to tell me what to do, but that's not being unshakable, because that's actually being cut off from an aspect of ourselves. That's what I would call masking our own insecurities with confidence and pushing things away. That's not how you become unshakable, because people like that just become narcissistic and they expect the whole world to sway, to look at them, to bend their will to whatever I want if I'm the person that's the center of attention, center of the world, right? That's not being unshakable. You can be successful, arguably, you can achieve a lot of things, arguably, in the world, but you're not going to be unshakable in the heart. You're not going to find peace. You're not going to find joy. You're going to get a lot of stuff, but you will ultimately betray yourself if you go on that route of masked insecurities and profound achievement, confidence. Now, I'm not dogging achievement. I think achievement's huge, just done in the right kind of way, right? So all this to say, it can become unshakable in the heart. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means like right now, go into your heart. What does that mean to you? What does it look like? What does it feel like to go into your heart? How do you feel? What's going on for you right now? Are you depressed? Are you anxious? Are you just kind of like, meh, I don't know. Or are you asking me this, right? However we are, just look, because the pathway to the heart is paved with awareness. So the more aware that we can become of how we feel, of our energy, of how we're navigating our world, how we become aware, then we can become in more and more in tune with the heart, right? So let's talk about just a pathway to the heart. If we're angry and frustrated, totally fine, right? We're not in the heart if we're angry, frustrated, irritable, depressed even, right? Well, arguably depressed. But what I mean is that if we're feeling frustrated or angry, that's one step towards being in our hearts. Now, what's underneath that? What we really want to get to when we talk about unshakability in the heart is becoming vulnerable and becoming transparent, such that we're not hiding anything. that we're not covering up anything, that we're not going out into the world and being about the world or against ourselves, right? That we're really connected to ourselves. So when I say the pathway of the heart, that's what I mean is like getting closer and closer to being in our heart such that we feel comfortable, maybe even not comfortable, maybe uncomfortable, but in our hearts, in a place of vulnerability. My definition of being courageous means being vulnerable in the face of fear. So the more that we can be courageous, cool the heart. I think that's my attempt at saying cool. That's heart in French. The more that we can practice being in our hearts and being open and being solid and residing in our hearts, that's how we become actually unshakable. So that's the first part. The second part is once we're in the practice and in the pathway of the heart, then we start taking ownership. So what I mean by that is that we create meaning based on what is happening in the world around us. Are we saying that, well, I'm not in my heart and I'm not unshakable, or I'm angry because da 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 da? There is only one because. The only because is because I am unconsciously or consciously choosing to be angry in that moment, in this example, right? And I'm not putting myself on a pedestal here. I definitely get angry about things, right? However, I'm clear that it's a choice that I'm making. Maybe not right in that moment, but in a few moments afterwards, because I've just been practicing this and teaching this for years, that it's clear to me that I'm making that choice, right? And for me, it's just conscious, right? 99% of the time, I'm being angry, and pretty quickly I'm aware that I'm doing consciously. For people who are starting on this path or new to this path of awareness, it might be largely unconscious. Totally fine. It's okay. Again, practicing ownership. This is how I'm feeling. And on some level, I am choosing to feel this way, right? We may not know why. There's probably a whole world of belief systems in our own programming from our families and the world around us around why we feel like we need to be angry. Perhaps we don't even feel safe. And there's some healing for us to do, in which case go back to step one, go into the pathway of the heart. And the more and more ownership that we take, what this allows for us is more and more awareness, right? And actually awareness comes first. Then we have more and more choice once we become more and more aware. And then we can take more and more ownership and responsibility. And once we start practicing that, oh my gosh, you will unlock an ability to create your life exactly as you design it. And again, I practiced all this stuff, and it wasn't easy and it wasn't messy. And I got to tell you, I have this fantastic life by design. Like every day I'm fulfilled by what I'm doing. Now you're not going to do what I'm going to do, what I'm doing, right? I live in Naples, Florida. I serve as a spiritual master. I have a private practice as a therapist. I've got great friendships. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't have sex. I live a pretty simple life, and it's hugely fulfilling and so fantastic for me, right? Your version of that will look very differently, and probably you'll indulging in at least two of the three things that I just mentioned, right? All right. So the third step is that once we have this ownership, practice allowing from this place of the pathway of the heart, practicing more and more ownership, become more and more vulnerable, more and more transparent, more open, more trusting. There's this fascinating story that I've heard about my spiritual master, Saima. She traveled to Bosnia during the war. She felt called and she needed to go to do some of her own work, like service work, for the people of Bosnia during that war that was happening. I think it was the 90s. And she went there, and it was an amazing experience. She's told us about that. She realized that was one of the places where she realized that safety was something that is completely internal. Even though she shares this, she was in a war and she witnessed neighbors leaving their houses and killing their neighbors that lived next to them. She was literally living in a war zone, and she didn't feel unsafe. Like she knew she was going to be safe because, she's been practicing unshakeability, and her consciousness is on such a profound high level. She creates her world exactly by design. And this is a profound example, and I would not recommend going into a war zone because we don't have that level of consciousness or that level of creative ability, we could say. And the principle here is that we create our own safety. So if we don't feel safe in certain situations, and now physical situations is a little bit different than emotional situations, But if we can practice creating our own sense of safety based on that pillar of ownership and practicing the pathway of the heart of becoming more and more open, taking more and more responsibility for how we feel safe. And if we don't, then this is going to unlock greatness in every aspect of your life, in your relationships and in your results that you get in your life, everywhere that you look. Now, here's the thing. It's okay to not put yourself in situations that are super uncomfortable or ridiculous or not discerning, right? Just to flex your own ability to be safe, right? And it's that principle of we create safety. Again, this is a big task that 99% of the world doesn't do. But if you want to become unshakable, you can practice these 3 things over time and you will gain more and more of that unshakability and have a beautiful, freaking glorious life. All my best to you.